The HOA president grabbed my sister by her hair and threw her to the ground. For parking a car for 2 hours. What happened next shocked the entire neighborhood so much that people could not believe what they saw. Justice came in a way no one expected. This is a story that will make you cry. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. The sun was shining bright on Maple Street that Tuesday afternoon in late June. It was one of those perfect summer days when the air is warm and everything feels peaceful. The birds were singing in the trees. Children were playing in nearby yards. An ice cream truck was playing its music down the street. It seemed like any other beautiful summer day, the kind that makes people happy and reminds them why they love living in a neighborhood like Maple Street. Sarah was simply walking to the mailbox, her blonde hair tied back in a neat ponytail, wearing her favorite blue summer dress that her grandmother had given her for her birthday. She was humming a song to herself. She had no idea that this ordinary moment would change her life forever. She had no idea that a woman she barely knew would reach out and grab her by the hair, pulling her down with such force that she would fall to the ground and feel pain she had never felt before in her entire 17 years of life. That woman was Carol Martinez. Everyone on Maple Street knew Carol. They called her Karen behind her back because she complained about everything. The grass was too tall on your lawn. Your car was too loud. Your children were too loud. Your dog barked at the wrong time. Your fence was the wrong color. Your driveway had too many cracks. Your mailbox was old-fashioned. Your lights were too bright at night. Your sprinklers watered too much. Carol had been the president of the Homeowners Association for 3 years, and in those 3 years, she had made the street a place of fear instead of a place of peace. She had made the street a place where people felt watched and judged every single day. People were afraid to park their cars. People were afraid to let their children play. People were afraid to paint their houses or plant gardens because Carol might not like it. Carol had filled the entire neighborhood with an atmosphere of fear and anxiety and stress. She would walk around the street with a notebook and write down everything that was wrong. Then she would send letters to people telling them what to fix. If they did not fix it quickly, she would show up at their door and complain. Sarah was only 17 years old. She had lived on Maple Street her whole life. She was born in this neighborhood and had grown up playing with the children of her neighbors. She knew everyone's names. She could tell you about everyone's families and their lives and their stories. She was kind to everyone around her. She helped old Mrs. Williams carry her groceries into her house every week without asking for anything in return. She babysat for Rebecca's children on weekends and never asked for too much money. She mowed Mr. Chen's lawn when he had back pain and refused to accept any payment. She volunteered at the animal shelter and spent her Saturday afternoons taking care of dogs and cats that had no homes. She was the kind of daughter that every parent dreamed of having. She was respectful to adults, intelligent in school, and had a good and pure heart. Her teachers loved her. Her neighbors loved her. Her parents were so proud of her. Everyone said that Sarah had a bright future ahead of her. Sarah's mother, Ellen, was inside the house when she heard the scream. It was not just any scream. It was a scream that came from deep pain and shock and terror and absolute fear. It was a scream that made Ellen's blood run cold and made her heart feel like it stopped beating. Ellen ran outside as fast as her legs could carry her, her heart pounding in her chest. When Ellen reached the door, she did not even stop to put on shoes. She just ran. She ran as fast as she could because she knew that something terrible was happening to her daughter. What she saw made her heart stop completely and made her feel like she was dying. Her baby girl was on the ground. Carol was standing over her with her hands in the air, breathing heavily, her face red with anger and rage and something that looked like madness. Sarah's hair was messy and tangled and messed up. There were scratches on her neck and shoulders. There were red marks all over her body. Ellen could see that Sarah was shaking like a leaf in the wind, trembling with fear and pain. "What are you doing?" Ellen screamed at the top of her lungs. "What are you doing to my daughter? Get away from her right now." Carol turned to her with cold eyes that showed no emotion, no regret, no understanding of what she had done. "Your daughter parked her car on the street for 2 hours today," Carol said, still breathing heavily. "It is not allowed according to the HOA rules that I made. Your family does not follow the rules that everyone must follow. Someone has to teach respect around here." Ellen could not believe what she was hearing. The words seemed impossible. She ran to Sarah and helped her up. Sarah was crying so hard that she could barely breathe. Her neck was red and hurt. Her arms were shaking. Her heart was beating so fast that she thought it might explode. Ellen held Sarah tightly and looked at Carol with an anger she had never felt in her entire life. "You attacked my daughter because of a car," Ellen said, her voice shaking with anger and disbelief and fury. "You grabbed her hair and threw her down. For parking a car. Are you insane?" "She needed to learn a lesson," Carol said, still standing there with no shame in her eyes and no regret in her voice. "This street has rules. If everyone does what they want, there is no order. Someone has to enforce the rules." That night, Sarah could not sleep. She lay in her bed and kept touching her neck where the scratches were burning and painful. She kept feeling the pain of her hair being pulled and her body hitting the hard ground. She kept seeing Carol's angry face in her mind. She kept hearing Carol's cold voice saying those terrible words. But the pain in her body was nothing compared to the pain in her heart. The physical pain would heal, but the emotional pain was much deeper and much harder to understand. Sarah was only 17 years old. She had never done anything wrong in her life. She got good grades in school, all A's and B's. She was kind to everyone around her. She volunteered at the animal shelter on weekends, taking care of dogs and cats that had no homes. She had plans and dreams. She was planning to go to college and become a teacher. She wanted to help children who had problems and needed someone to believe in them. She had such a beautiful future ahead of her, a future full of hope and possibility. Now everything felt different. Everything felt wrong. She felt scared in her own neighborhood. She felt unsafe even in her own home. When she looked in the mirror at her reflection, she did not see the same girl anymore. She saw a girl who had been hurt by someone for no real reason. She saw a girl who had done nothing wrong but was punished anyway. She saw a girl who would never forget this day. She saw a girl who was not sure who she was anymore. Ellen stayed with Sarah all night. She sat on the edge of Sarah's bed and held her daughter's hand. Ellen listened as Sarah cried and cried. Ellen felt anger like she had never felt before in her entire life. Her baby girl had been hurt. Not by a stranger on the street. But by someone who lived on their street. Someone who was supposed to help keep the neighborhood safe and peaceful. Someone who had betrayed the trust that everyone had placed in her. Ellen thought about all the times Carol had come to neighborhood meetings and talked about rules and order and responsibility. Ellen thought about how Carol acted like she was better than everyone else. Ellen thought about how Carol had made so many people feel bad about themselves and their homes and their lives. But Ellen had never thought that Carol would become violent. Ellen had never thought that Carol would actually hurt someone. Ellen had never imagined that things would go this far. The next morning, Ellen called the police. She told them everything that had happened. She showed them the scratches on Sarah's neck. She showed them the red marks on Sarah's shoulders. She took pictures of all the injuries with her phone. A police officer came to their house and talked to Sarah carefully and kindly. Sarah told him everything that happened. She was scared to tell the story and she cried while she was talking. But she told the truth because she knew it was right. She knew that what Carol did was wrong and that people needed to know about it. The police officer wrote everything down in his notebook. He took pictures of Sarah's injuries. He talked to Ellen about what she had seen. He asked them if they wanted to press charges. Ellen and Sarah looked at each other. They both knew what they had to do. They had to tell the truth, even though it would be hard. They had to make sure that what Carol did had consequences. News travels fast on a street like Maple Street. By the end of that day, everyone knew what Carol had done. But not everyone believed it at first. Carol had been the HOA president for 3 years. She was the one who called the meetings. She was the one who made the decisions. She was the one who told people what to do. Surely someone like Carol would not do something like this. Surely there must be a mistake or a misunderstanding. But then people started talking to each other about their own experiences. They started talking about Carol. They started remembering things that they had tried to forget. Mrs. Jackson, who lived 3 houses down from Sarah's family, remembered when Carol came to her door early in the morning and screamed at her for 1 hour straight. She remembered the reason that Carol was so angry. Mrs. Jackson's son had left his bicycle in the front yard for 30 minutes. That was it. Just 30 minutes. A boy had forgotten to put his bicycle away. But Carol had screamed and yelled like it was the worst thing that had ever happened in the history of the world. Mrs. Jackson remembered how she had cried after Carol left. She remembered how her son had felt so ashamed and so scared. Mr. Chen, who lived next door to Sarah's family, remembered when Carol came to his house and told him that his garden was ugly and that he should be ashamed of how his yard looked. Mr. Chen had spent months planning and planting that garden. His wife had helped him plant the flowers. His wife had just passed away 2 months before Carol said those words. That garden was Mr. Chen's way of remembering his wife and keeping her memory alive. When Carol called it ugly, Mr. Chen felt like his wife's memory was being insulted. Mr. Chen had cried that day. He cried alone in his garden where Carol could not see him. A young mother named Rebecca remembered when Carol came to her door late at night and complained that her baby was crying too much and that it was disturbing the peace of the neighborhood. A baby. Carol was complaining about a baby crying. Babies cry. That is what babies do. But Carol did not care about that. Carol did not care that Rebecca was trying her best. Carol only cared about her rules and her order and her power. Mrs. Williams, who was 84 years old and lived alone in a small house, remembered when Carol came to her door and told her that her porch was dated and that it looked old and ugly. Mrs. Williams had lived in that house for 50 years. That porch had been painted by her late husband. That porch held so many memories. But Carol did not care about any of that. Carol only cared about how things looked according to her standards. A teenager named Marcus remembered when Carol told him that he could not have his friends over because they were too loud and it was disturbing the peace. Marcus had maybe 3 friends over one afternoon. They had laughed and talked and played video games. That was it. But Carol had come to the door and told him that he was ruining the neighborhood and that he should think about other people for once in his life. People started talking. Really talking. They started sharing their stories about Carol in small groups in their yards and on their porches. They started sharing their stories over the phone and through text messages. They started writing down their experiences because they realized that this was important. They started to realize something very important. Carol had hurt many people. Carol had made many people feel bad about themselves. Carol had used her power as HOA president to make people's lives miserable and difficult. But she had never done anything physical before. She had never grabbed anyone by the hair. She had never thrown anyone to the ground. This was different. This was a crime. This was violence. And everyone on Maple Street knew it now. 3 days after the incident, the police came to Carol's house early in the morning. They had a warrant for her arrest. They knocked on her door and when she opened it, they told her that she was under arrest for assault and battery. They told her that she had the right to remain silent. They put her in handcuffs and took her to the police station. Carol's face showed shock for the first time. She tried to say that Sarah had been disrespectful to her. She tried to say that she was only teaching her a lesson about following rules. She tried to say that it was not a big deal, just a little push and pull. But it was a big deal. And everyone on Maple Street knew it now. News spread through the neighborhood like fire. People talked about it at the grocery store. People talked about it at their jobs. People called each other and talked about it. People knew that something important was happening. People knew that Carol's power was finally being challenged. The case went to court 1 month later. The day of the trial, the courthouse was full of people. Many of Sarah's neighbors came to show their support. They sat in the courtroom and watched everything that happened. Sarah had to stand up in front of a judge in a courtroom full of people and tell her story. It was very difficult for her. She had to sit in the same room with Carol. She had to see Carol's face while she talked about what happened. She had to remember everything and describe it in detail. But Sarah was brave. She spoke clearly and honestly. She did not try to make anything sound worse than it was. She just told the truth. She said, "I was walking to the mailbox. I was not doing anything wrong. Carol grabbed my hair from behind. She pulled me down to the ground. It hurt. I was scared. I did not know what was happening. I did not know why she was hurting me. I only knew that a woman was attacking me in my own neighborhood." A doctor examined the scratches on Sarah's neck and testified in court. The doctor said that the scratches were consistent with someone grabbing and pulling another person's hair with force. The doctor said that the injuries would leave scars that might take several months to fade completely. The police officer testified about what Ellen had told him. The officer talked about the pictures that Ellen had taken of Sarah's injuries. The officer talked about how Sarah had been shaking and crying when he arrived at the house. Then Carol tried to defend herself. She got up and talked to the judge. She said that Sarah had been disrespectful to her. She said that she was upset about the HOA rules not being followed. She said that she had a right to enforce the rules as president of the HOA. She said that she had only meant to get Sarah's attention, not to hurt her. She said that Sarah was exaggerating her injuries. But the judge did not believe her. The judge had seen the pictures. The judge had heard the testimony. The judge had listened to Sarah tell her story with honesty and courage. The judge knew the truth. "What you did was wrong," the judge said to Carol in a serious and firm voice. "You assaulted a minor. You used your position of power to hurt someone who was not even breaking any serious rules. A car parked for 2 hours is not worth hurting a child. You acted with anger and violence, and now you must face the consequences of your actions." The judge sentenced Carol to 6 months in jail. Carol had to leave her house immediately. She had to leave Maple Street. She had to go to jail and think about what she had done. She had to face the consequences of her violence. After Carol was arrested and sent to jail, something changed on Maple Street. It was like everyone could breathe again. It was like a dark cloud had lifted from the street. People started smiling more. Children played in the yards without fear. People talked to each other without worry. People stopped looking over their shoulders all the time. The HOA had a new election. The neighbors voted together and chose Mr. Chen to be the new president. Mr. Chen was kind and thoughtful. He listened to people. He cared about their feelings and their needs. Mr. Chen promised that the HOA would be different now. He promised that the rules would be fair and kind. He promised that the HOA would bring people together, not push them apart. He promised that the neighborhood would be a place where people could be themselves without fear. The rules changed. The new HOA said that residents could park their cars on the street during the day without any problems. The new HOA said that gardens could look however people wanted them to look. The new HOA said that people could have their friends over and have fun. The new HOA said that people could be themselves without fear of punishment or shame. But Sarah still had a hard time. The physical wounds healed within a few weeks. The scratches on her neck faded and became lighter. But the emotional wounds took much longer to heal. The emotional pain stayed with her even after the physical pain was gone. She had nightmares about being grabbed. She would wake up in the middle of the night feeling scared and confused. She felt scared when she saw people getting angry, even if they were not angry at her. She did not feel safe in the neighborhood anymore. She felt like something had been taken from her that she would never get back. Her mother Ellen knew that Sarah needed more help. She knew that this was something bigger than just a mother could handle alone. She found a counselor who specialized in helping people who had experienced violence and trauma. Sarah started going to see this counselor 2 times a week. In the beginning, Sarah did not want to talk. She sat in the counselor's office and said nothing. But slowly, very slowly, Sarah began to open up and share her feelings. The counselor helped Sarah understand that what happened was not her fault. The counselor helped Sarah understand that she was not responsible for Carol's actions or Carol's anger. The counselor helped Sarah see that she was brave and strong and that she could overcome this hurt. The counselor taught Sarah how to deal with her fear and her sadness. The counselor taught Sarah how to remember what happened without being controlled by those memories. 1 month before Sarah finished with her counselor, Sarah made a very important decision. She decided that she was going to write a letter to the judge. In this letter, she would tell the judge exactly how this experience had changed her. She would tell the judge how she felt every single day. She would tell the judge that she wanted Carol to understand what she had done and how much pain she had caused. Sarah sat at her desk for many hours and she wrote from her heart. She cried while she was writing. She remembered everything and put it into words. She wrote about the fear that she felt every day. She wrote about the pain in her body and in her heart. She wrote about the nightmares that kept her awake at night. She wrote about how this experience had made her question herself and her safety. She wrote about how she almost gave up on her dreams of becoming a teacher because she was so scared and so hurt. She wrote about how hard it was to come back to her neighborhood and see the place where she had been hurt. She wrote about how she felt when she had to go to court and see Carol's face. But she also wrote about her strength. She wrote about how she chose to tell the truth even though it was hard and scary. She wrote about how talking to a counselor helped her understand her feelings. She wrote about how her neighbors had shown her love and support. She wrote about how she was going to keep living her life and pursuing her dreams, not because Carol was gone, but because she was strong enough to do it. She wrote, "Your Honor, I want Carol to know that what she did was wrong. She hurt me when I did nothing to deserve it. But I also want Carol to know that I will not let this destroy me. I am 17 years old, and I have my whole life ahead of me. I am going to go to college. I am going to become a teacher. I am going to help children who are hurt like I was hurt. I am going to teach them that they are strong and brave even when bad things happen to them. That is my dream, and Carol cannot take it from me. I hope that in jail, Carol will think about what she did. I hope that she will understand that using power to hurt people is wrong. I hope that she will change and become a better person. But whether she changes or not, I know that I am going to be okay. I am going to be better than okay. I am going to be happy and successful and I will make a difference in this world." When the judge read this letter in court, even the judge's eyes had tears in them. The judge had to stop reading for a moment to compose himself. He looked at Sarah with respect and admiration. Carol sat in the courtroom and listened as the judge read Sarah's words. And for the first time, Carol seemed to truly understand what she had done. She seemed to understand that her actions had real consequences for a real person. She seemed to understand that she had hurt a young girl who had done nothing wrong. For the first time, Carol looked like she was truly sorry. The day the judge made his final decision and announced Carol's sentence, the entire neighborhood gathered outside the courthouse. They wanted to show Sarah that they supported her. They wanted to show that they believed her and stood with her. They wanted to show that they did not support what Carol had done and that they were proud of Sarah for being brave. When Sarah walked out of the courthouse with her mother Ellen, she saw all of them. She saw Mrs. Jackson standing there with flowers. She saw Mr. Chen standing there with pride on his face. She saw Rebecca and her baby. She saw Mrs. Williams leaning on a cane. She saw Marcus and his friends. She saw so many neighbors standing together in the sunshine. People clapped and cheered. People smiled. Some people cried tears of happiness and relief. Not because they were mean or because they wanted to see Carol suffer. But because they believed that what Sarah had done was brave and right. They believed that speaking the truth was important and powerful. They believed that using power to hurt people should have consequences. They believed in justice and they believed in Sarah. Sarah felt something that she had not felt since that terrible day. She felt safe. She felt supported and loved. She felt like she belonged to a community that cared about her and would protect her. She felt like she was not alone anymore. Ellen put her arm around her daughter and they stood there together while people showed them love and support. Ellen whispered to Sarah, "You did it. You told the truth, and the truth set us all free." Sarah kept her promise. She went to college and became a teacher. She taught at a middle school and helped students who had experienced bullying and violence. She started a support group for students who had experienced assault and trauma. She wrote an article in her school's newsletter about how to help people who had been hurt. Many students came to her office and told her their own stories. Many students felt safe with her because they knew that she understood their pain. On Maple Street, things had changed for good. The HOA became known as one of the best neighborhoods in the city, not because all the rules were perfectly followed, but because people were kind to each other. Because people respected each other, because people used their power to help, not to hurt. Sometimes, Sarah would think back to that day when Carol grabbed her hair and threw her to the ground. But the memory did not make her feel scared anymore. It made her feel strong. It made her remember that she had overcome something difficult and painful. It made her remember that telling the truth was powerful and important. It made her remember that a whole neighborhood could stand together for what was right and just. The story of Sarah and Carol became a lesson for Maple Street. It became a story that parents told their children about why it is important to be kind and respectful. It became a story that people told each other about why using power to hurt people always has consequences. It became a story about justice and truth and the strength of a community that stands together to support each other. And Sarah? Sarah lived a good and beautiful life. She became a teacher who helped many children. She had friends who loved her. She had family who was proud of her. She had overcome her hurt and turned it into something beautiful and meaningful. She had taken her pain and used it to help others and make the world a better place. That is the real victory. That is the real justice. Not just that Carol was punished, but that Sarah was able to heal and become stronger and better than before. Years passed and Sarah became more and more successful. She finished college with honors. She got a job at a middle school teaching English and helping students with emotional problems. Every single day, she would go to school and help students who had experienced trauma and hurt. She organized support groups. She created safe spaces where students could talk about their pain without fear of judgment. She wrote articles and gave speeches about how to help people who had been hurt by others. She became known in her school and her community as someone who truly cared about helping people heal. Maple Street continued to be a beautiful neighborhood. Mr. Chen became the most beloved HOA president the street had ever seen. He organized neighborhood barbecues where everyone came together and shared food and stories. He created a community garden where all the neighbors could plant vegetables and flowers together. He started a neighborhood watch program, but not to punish people like Carol did. Instead, it was to help people and keep everyone safe and connected. Sarah's story became famous in her town. News reporters wanted to interview her. Universities wanted her to give speeches to students studying education and psychology. She was invited to speak at schools all over the state about her experience and how she overcame it. Every time she told her story, she would see people's eyes fill with tears. Every time she spoke, she would help other people who had experienced similar pain understand that they were not alone and that they could heal and become stronger. Years after the trial, Sarah received a letter. It was from Carol. Carol had been released from jail and had started going to counseling and therapy. Carol wrote that she had thought about Sarah every single day while she was in jail. Carol said that she finally understood what she had done and how wrong it was. Carol said that she was truly sorry and that she hoped someday Sarah could forgive her. Carol said that she was trying to become a better person and that Sarah's bravery had changed her life. Sarah read the letter and she cried. But this time, she cried not from sadness or anger, but from relief and hope. She realized that her speaking the truth had not only changed her own life and the lives of her neighbors, but it had also changed Carol's life. It had helped Carol see the wrong that she had done. It had helped Carol begin her own journey of healing and change. Sarah did not write back to Carol. But she did keep the letter. She kept it as a reminder that even when we are hurt, even when we are angry, even when we feel like giving up, telling the truth and standing strong can create real change in the world. That letter became a symbol of hope and healing and transformation for Sarah.